I'm excited to introduce our first two presenters, and I'm just going to say before I get started that a lot of these teachers are very accomplished and have very long titles, so I'm going to do my very best to get their titles right, but if I have to look at my note cards, forgive me. All right, so I'm excited to introduce Sharon Lozada. She's a STARS peer leadership teacher at Cambridge Ringe and Latin School, and Angeline UyHam, who is a district design and innovation coach with the Cambridge Public Schools. Right? Thank you. And they're going to talk to you about how to get your mojo back when you're seeking innovative solutions to everyday challenges. So welcome them up to the stage.
Let's face it, for anyone who's in education right now, it can feel pretty overwhelming. There's a lot to navigate. It's like a maze, like an obstacle course to maneuver. Whether we're dealing with likes and swipes, staying on top of all the emails and the tech updates, taking care of everyone else's needs, including our own, or trying to actually find what we're looking for in all of this, right? Whether we're trying to stay up with a slew of initiatives like ABCs, DDMs, MCAS, XYZs, it can all make us feel like we want to go MIA. So in this era of evaluation, something big is missing. It's like we lost our spark, our mojo. And did we lose it? Or did we actually just give it away? Even if we wanted to find it, it's not like we have the time to look for it anyway. We're all caught up in this push and pull between obligation and inspiration. All this focus on what we have to do is holding us back from what we really want to do.
What we want to do. What if we focused on that? In the fall of 2014, I was having my own lost mojo moment. So I did something I never imagined myself doing. I went to business school. I thought I'd be a fish out of water, but something about that experience brought me back to the things I had been longing to get back to, following my curiosity, leaning into the things that inspired me, and trusting my decisions. And when I went back to the Cambridge Public Schools, I was eager to hear how things were different, but disappointed to see that although the seasons had changed, not much else had. Educators still wanted their voices to be heard, and they wanted to innovate solutions to problems they were seeing. But often, obligation was prioritized over inspiration. I wondered, what if we flipped that scenario and found our way back to being inspired, curious decision makers? We're here tonight to say that we don't believe that obligation and inspiration have to be separate. Inspiration is what makes obligation bearable, because it is a lot easier to do what you have to do when you want to do it. So in the fall of 2016, I offered an opportunity to educators, and I called it the Design Lab. It was a place for educators to gather, and it was really rooted in design thinking. Design thinking is creative problem solving. It's human-centered, it's collaborative, it's optimistic, and it's experimental. Design thinking begins by reframing a challenge. For example, recognizing the loss of educators' mojo and asking ourselves, how might we capitalize on educators' expertise and experience and passions to change the way in which problems are addressed? There are 4 other phases that we move into: the eyes and ears, the head, the hands, and the heart. The eyes and ears are about awareness and learning. By being aware of our biases, identity, power, and context, and learning as much as we can about the experiences of others through observations and interviews, we're already data rich. From that information, we move into the head, and we make sense of it. We interpret it, and then we start to brainstorm as many ideas as possible. Then we move to the hands, and that's where the magic happens. We get out of our heads and start doing things in real time, prototyping them in classrooms, in after schools, and in the community. And then, what happens next, Sharon?
So just as the Student Design Lab was hatching, I was walking into my classroom every day to a challenge that just kept presenting itself to me. I thought I was doing everything I could to engage my students in real and relevant ways. They didn't necessarily agree. Sure, sometimes there'd be moments of interest, but let's be real. Sometimes they just weren't feeling it. So I would go home and do some soul searching around what cool activity I could come up with to re-engage them, or what magic trick I could pull out of nowhere. And I kept asking myself, what's wrong? Why aren't they feeling it? I was starting to feel like I was losing my mojo too. And then I thought, no way, I'm not having it. I knew I didn't want to be feeling this way, and neither did my students. We just had to get out of this funk. So I invited myself and them to do something that none of us had done in a long while. Play with ideas, with what we feel passionately about, with what we wanted our learning and our lives to look like. And we thought, where else could we do this beyond the classroom? That's right, the design lab. So we signed up and we got to work. But it wasn't work as we were conditioned to know it. We dove into the design thinking process, and we tried to figure out how to reignite what was missing for us. We told our stories. We asked real questions of real people. We mapped out wild ideas. We experimented with prototypes. And we made mistakes, and we learned from them and each other. And in doing this, my students inspired me to become a student again. And they became my teacher. And through this, we were able to claim our own design challenge. And with the key elements of voice, choice, and agency. See, this is how it works.
This is how it works.
This is design thinking on the spot.
Prototyping with our hair.
With the key elements of voice, choice, and agency, we created our own student design lab, or student D-lab to, keep it hip. And this was a place where students could take on the issues that really matter to them and make meaningful change in their own community. So now we've taken the design lab multiple times. In the grand scheme of education, it's not usually a good thing if you have to take something over again. But the D-lab is different. We just can't get enough of it. The creative, collaborative vibe, the dynamic energy, the chance to take on risks and to change up the status quo with students and teachers. In the D-Lab, we can turn learning on its head and crack it wide open. And as a result, we all feel so much better.
So you're probably imagining the lab, right? Whiteboards, dry erase markers everywhere, movable furniture, even a snack station. That's what it's like in Silicon Valley, right? And don't we deserve the same?
Uh-huh, yep.
But here's the catch. There is no lab. There is no lab. It's not a space. It's a space and a mindset to exhale, reset, prioritize, connect, and build in ways that we haven't had. And it's in that simplicity that new ideas are launched. Because with limited funds and limited space, people get creative. And when educators get creative, a non-traditional network is formed. And when you combine a determined group of people and an opportunity, it feeds something that obligation can't, and only inspiration can. So, the Design Lab has grown from 5 educators to over 300 participants and is a new model to co-design in our schools, district, and in our community. And design challenges range from kindergartners designing centers for their peers, to the dismantling of 7th grade tracking and providing advanced math for all scholars, to new and exciting ways to engage high schoolers beyond the school day. And it's not perfect. It is definitely not perfect, but let me tell you, something has begun. And we not only own it, embrace it, but we're moving this work forward.
And so now we're all in this together, and we keep taking on our design challenges and turning to each other to try to solve them. We now have administrators, teachers, students, community partners, all turning to each other to bravely face and reframe our problems and play with the possibilities in a space that's bigger than we ever imagined. And now this space belongs to all of you too. So let's try this right now, together. Ask yourselves, what keeps you up at night? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What inspires you? Because if we follow that inspiration, it will lead us to our very own design challenges. And when you leave here, don't stop. Commit to your challenge and share it out to make it real. Seek out your tribe and invite them into your journey. Then dive deeply. When we give ourselves this permission to experiment and play, we all can embrace what is truly ours. And in doing so, we will find that elusive mojo that we've been searching for all along. Thank you. Good job.